on with Jeff Kavanaugh and KT on day one of the draft. Dalton writes for PFN and is also one of the key members of Blue Chip Scouting. Or did you lay off?
Yeah, not Blue Chip Scouting anymore. I started that, but I handed everything off when I went full time over at PFN.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, so writer at PFN and the I don't know what the word is. Pessimist when it comes to tight ends, and level-headed most of the time. So one of my favorite people. So yeah, Dalton Miller, everyone.
So I try to be as level-headed as possible. It doesn't always happen.
Perfect. All right, we're in there. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Your reputation precedes you a little bit. I heard a little something both about some tight end pessimism, but also that you got some pretty good NFL draft takes. So it's awesome. We really appreciate you having you here. It's really an honor.
I have some pretty mediocre NFL draft takes, but I try my best.
Well,
But yeah, anyway, let's get down to it. We thought that we could go through some Cowboys reactions, maybe, and then talk about some good scheme fits that you had in mind that you were seeing as you went through the draft, and maybe ones that were kind of questionable fits with the teams that they were drafted by.
Get in there.
I think we know how you feel about the first round pick from your YouTube stream. That was a theatrical response, to say the least.
Yeah, as someone who maybe didn't catch it, can you fill me in? What's the feeling? How are the emotions right now?
So I mean, I'm doing a little bit better now. I went back and rewatched this film. I think it was yesterday on Twitch, and it was concerning from a tackle standpoint. I think some of the issues are going to kind of go away as he moves inside into guard. But he needs a redo of his hands and his feet. The good news is when things are good, they're really good, and he is a very good run block. We know that the Dallas Cowboys love to run the football. So I think he brings a little bit of physicality that you might not have had with Connor Williams in at left guard. And I think this team really felt that they didn't have that. I think that's why they coveted Trevor Penning so much as well. They would have been willing to trade up and go and get him if they could have. And they wanted him because he's an asshole. They talked to him during a meeting with him and asked him, they pulled up tape from one of the games. They were getting their butts kicked. He was angry at the very end, and he punched a guy in the end zone, just slugged him. And it was at the end of the game. And they asked him about it. They were like, "Why'd you do that?" And he was like, "We're getting our asses kicked. I was mad. It was the end of the game. Nothing like super bad was going to happen from it. And so I hit him." And that's what the Cowboys love the most from talking to Trevor Penning, was that he is just kind of an a-hole, and he is going to bring an attitude to the football team.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. To use the scouting term, he has a big butt, which is what we were missing with Connor Williams, right? And so I'm excited about the prospect because, a lot of, hand placement still matters on the inside, but it matters a little bit less than it does when you're on the outside. And so I think, we're in a good position where we 100% know we're kicking him inside. Like, there's just no way he's playing outside this year. We already have a guy who can't punch and who can't move his feet as well on the other side. So, the fact that we're putting him inside, I think, puts him in a better place to succeed right now. And, we're probably not going to be super happy with the results, at least in year one. Leading the NCAA in penalties is not the greatest thing in the world, to put it lightly. And and I will say one thing about generally the Cowboys drafts the past 2 years is that we stood pat and took 20 draft picks in 2 years, which honestly is ludicrous. But the fact of the matter is we are not disillusioned by the fact that the Joneses, to an extent, know we're rebuilding, right? Because we are drafting draft picks. We are replacing larger contracts with rookies. And I think that, as much as Cowboys fans are frustrated because we need, it's the kind of the stick meme. It's like, do something, right? I think the Joneses are aware that we are rebuilding kind of as we go a little bit. And while it's not ideal in the way that a lot of fans want it to, they're not they're not unaware. I guess I'll say.
Yeah. And I mean, it really seems like this team is kind of building towards 2023. I mean, today they drafted a very good linebacker today, in Damone Clark from LSU, but he's going to have spinal fusion surgery. Tyler Smith, a guy with great upside, might not be ready year one. Sam Williams is a little bit of a wild card with some of the off-field stuff. And so you look at what they did in free agency, which was nothing, and they always kind of do nothing, but they were especially quiet this year, and they even let a couple of guys that were homegrown go, and that normally doesn't happen. The Cowboys take pride in being able to retain their own. So they weren't able to make the team any better in the offseason. They needed to try in this draft. They really needed to hit on some guys, and they didn't get those guys. So for me, it's a team that doesn't look as talented as it was last season. And it's going to take a better Dak Prescott and better schematics to figure this out and to consistently win football games.
Yeah, and maybe it'll take a Sean Payton in the future to maybe find some success.
I don't think that's the guy, but I've kind of had the hot take out there. I guess hot. It's probably more lukewarm, but that Dan Quinn will be the head coach in 2023.
And frankly, I for one would be okay with that. I don't know how most.
That sounds like, I guess nothing against Mike McCarthy, but like that sounds decent enough to me. I don't know. But yeah, so I guess looking at your third round pick of Jalen Tolbert, do you want to touch at all on? I admittedly didn't really get to watch much Jalen Tolbert tape. Do you want to touch on maybe how the Cowboys might use him given the recent loss of Amari Cooper and as they're kind of refiguring out how they want their wide receiver room to look?
Yeah, it's interesting because Tolbert's a guy I just didn't expect him to be around at 88. I thought he was going to be gone in the 60s or 70s. And you know, when you do a mock draft, you look at Tolbert and it's like, well, he's not really a guy I would want to take at 56. I think there's going to be other receivers that I like more. So you don't even really think about it. But then when it happens in real life, you sit back and you think, well, this is a kid that I really like coming out of South Alabama. I really like what I saw from him while I was at the Senior Bowl. He is an intelligent route runner. He is not a great tester, but he is a good separator. He's got strong hands. He is very physical with the catch point. And he can play inside, outside, either outside spots. It really doesn't matter. He can be a little bit of a downfield threat. He is a nice pickup, and it is very reminiscent of what Michael Gallup was a couple of years ago. Now, I like Gallup coming out a little bit more. But Tolbert is a very good football player and a very nice pickup at 88.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I noticed from his tape that whenever they need a long first, like they need 20 yards, it's third and 20 or something, they are 100% of the time going to Jalen Tolbert. Like it was kind of this alpha thing, and he plays so much bigger than he actually is listed. You saw you might have seen in the Discord chat yesterday. Like I was confused because I thought he was a big guy.
I couldn't believe it, and then I saw him in person. I was like, yeah, he's like 6 foot. I mean, I think he's a little bit taller than 6 foot, but like usually when I'm looking at these dudes that are big receivers, like I have to look up a little bit. I'm almost 6 foot, but that's still a significant height increase. And I was almost looking him in the eyes, and I was like, okay, Tolbert's not as big as I thought. Okay, all right. But you're right, he plays that big, and I really enjoy wide receivers that play a lot bigger than they are.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I also confess I didn't have North Dakota tape from Matt Waletzko, although the DallasCowboys.com guys were all over that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But talk to me about your tight end. We've been hinting at how you are against drafting tight ends, but talk to me about tight ends and why Jalen Ferguson might suffer from that exact same problem.
So I want to bring up Let's Go real quick because I actually did watch a little bit of him just on the side watching Christian Watson. So he is a really athletic guy, but a lot like Dylan Radins, he's going to have to take a little bit of time to get into an NFL mindset. And so I think that there is upside there to be kind of a swing guy in the future. And I hope that he can be because the physical profile is there. Now, tight ends. I just don't like spending the draft capital on a position that is such a hard transition to make from college to the pro level. And when the guys that are there that can do it, the OJ Howards, who we all thought was going to be a fantastic pro, when you find that first round tight end, you can go out and do that. If it's not that and you need to get a little bit of depth, you can take one a little bit later and just bet on an athlete. Go after the guys who are athletic and big. Because as we've seen recently, that position more than any other position in the sport is reliant, the rate of success is reliant on athleticism. So guys like from Maryland, and Jelani Woods going in the 70s, after being pretty relatively unknown for a while during the draft process. I think it goes to show how important that is. Now, Ferguson isn't a fantastic athlete on tape, but it's okay if you're not expecting them to have to start. As a tight end too, that is absolutely fine. I just don't like trying to draft a guy and then having to insert him immediately, because it almost always does not work out.
Yeah, I might be misremembering, but didn't Jake Ferguson kind of profile more as like your run blocking tight end more than an actual like receiving threat?
Yeah, it's honestly, he's not in college. He's not unlike Dalton Schultz was in college. Like, not the first round, 6'6", 265-pound tight end,
Yeah.
but a little bit smaller, but a good blocking tight end in college. So I think that's probably what we're gonna get early. Dalton Schultz learned how to be a fantastic route runner, but I do also think he's a little bit better functional athlete than Ferguson is.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because you have the Iowa tight ends who always seem to be freakishly athletic. You got your Noah Fants, your TJ Hawkinsons, but then you have the same tight end come out from Wisconsin and Stanford every year. It's just the same guy. They just bring out the factory and they just
Dude,
churn him out.
Are you 6'8" and not very good at basketball? Come play tight end for Stanford, because they just like lob it up to those trees over the middle of the field.
Eat some hay for breakfast, and
yeah, Dalton. So for background, me and Mark are both we met at the University of Maryland marching band. Mark was my section leader. Let me tell you, our freshman year bowl game was the Christian McCaffrey breakout game. In the Foster Farms Bowl that was played at Candlestick, which home field advantage much for Stanford, but I remember doing the scouting reports for them at that year, and it was like Yadni Kajust, who's like something like 6'5", and you had their names are escaping me, but just like I remember, and I was like, they don't have a single receiver under 6'2". Like,
yeah.
It was preposterous. Barry Sanders' son was actually on that team as well, but yeah. I agree. Okay. Who else do we have up on here? Do you have anything on Deron Bland? Because I confess I do not.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, that sounded like a Dan Quinn athlete pick. I am a little bit confused because his profile says he's 6 foot tall, and everyone's like, oh, has that full corner body, and maybe he's built better than his profile suggests, but 6 foot doesn't seem like a tall corner to me, but.
No, it all depends on how long those arms are. Are they over 32 inches? Because if they are, then he's tall. That's the way that goes.
Oh, I guess it's more horizontal height for corners, I guess.
Yeah, all the length. And then John Ridgway from Arkansas. That was probably my favorite pick of the draft.
It was Jerry's favorite pick as well, I can tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. Big dude in the middle, and that's what we've been looking for a very long time. And sometimes we wish that they would spend a little bit more capital on that position specifically. But they went out and got a guy who I would have been happy with them taking, late third round. So I'm definitely happy with Ridgway.
Yeah, for sure. Ridgway was my third one tech and probably my fifth defensive tackle overall. So like, I'm perfectly happy with that. I lament the fact that. Sorry, go ahead.
So how many one techs are normally drafted in a given year?
Not many. 8, 9, 10, somewhere around.
Oh, wow. There. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I do lament the fact that drafting John Ridgway means that we are for sure not re-signing Brent Urban, which Kate Urban is a gem, and so yeah, we would have loved to keep her around for a little while longer. But I agree. We needed to address that. That was just a mess. Also, by the way, Deron Bland has 32-inch arms, so he is tall.
Called it.
But yeah, and I don't know who Devin Harper is. He's the not Malcolm Rodriguez, but all Big 12 linebackers are the fast, smaller guys. So at the very least he'll be a at the very least he'll be a special teamer, right? So
Yeah.
I was happy about that.
Yeah,
Damone Clark, I don't know much about medicine, I confess. My sister's a nurse, so maybe I should know a little better. I've seen every single episode of Grey's Anatomy, so I know. But spinal fusion just doesn't sound good to me. I don't know much about medicine, but that sounds bad.
Yeah, I mean, did you hear anything about prognosis, like what this means for when he can actually see the field? Or
Everything that I've seen today just said not this year. So
okay.
I think Hellman was saying that he's back in 6 months from now, which is not this year. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But like you said, we're building for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess do y'all have any other any general thoughts on the Cowboys draft as a whole before we move on to the next NFC East team? Like any feelings, any holes that you think still need to be addressed, any UDFAs, any general thoughts?
I don't think I do. I think just overall, it wasn't a bad draft. It wasn't a good draft. It was just kind of mid. It was just right there in the middle, and that's okay. It's not great when that's really the only avenue that you use to build your football team, but every once in a while you're gonna miss, and this was not a very talented draft to begin with, so you already had a lower chance of success. So kind of a tough one, but I think the scouting staff really showed its strengths on day 3.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Well, Dalton, let me ask this, because Kyle Yeomans asked this on the DallasCowboys.com stream as well. Do you feel better or worse this year than you did last year about the draft?
Ooh.
Worse.
Worse?
Just because I knew. So I know a lot of people kind of soured on Micah Parsons, and I would be lying to you if I wasn't worried about the Penn State stuff. But I knew he was going to be a good player. I had him as my linebacker 1 last year. He was a top 10 player for me. He was very, very good. So I was at least happy about that. I didn't love Boss Man. I was beside myself about the Nashawn Wright pick. But they did okay outside of that. And so I was okay with that draft last year, a little bit more than this year. What I will say is I really like day 3 this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
agree.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, in my very limited look at other people's reactions to day 3, because I have to admit I haven't seen a lot of the tape on a lot of these day 3 Cowboys guys, but I saw a lot of positive reviews. I guess I'll put it that way. So I don't blame you.
And I think we're knocking it out of the park with UDFAs as well, which once again is the strength of our scout team, right? Day 3 is for the scouts, and we have good scouts. Alec Lindstrom.
Wait, Alec Lindstrom didn't get drafted?
Nope.
He did not. No.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But we picked him up.
Yeah.
Alec Lindstrom, Garibay, the kicker. Marquise Bell, which as former Terps,
Ooh.
Mark and I have a certain soft spot before, but he's going to be your curse backup, right? That's exactly where he fits in, and that fits that tape to the T. We have both those problematic Indiana guys, because Indiana had that weird offense where they had a receiver that was just like a tight end and a tight end that was just like a receiver.
Yeah.
And so I always at least confused Hendershot and Freifogel. They were the same player to me, but
yeah. Just go out, just fuse them together and make them one position.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. You have a athletic white guy that's going to run around in the field. Okay, sure. Dalton, did you want to go through other NFC East teams, or do you have some thoughts on some scheme fits that you especially liked and scheme questions that you have?
Let's go through the other NFC East teams, because I think that we have a little bit to worry about at this point.
I agree with you. Because we need to count. If you want to, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah.
The Eagles. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's.
There's an unlisted draft pick here that we need to talk about, right?
Wait. Did I? Wait.
No,
yeah. Sorry, you're right. 'Cause you're talking like AJ Brown.
Yeah.
Sorry, my graphics don't show some of the players that went to different teams based on trades. But yes, AJ Brown. did in fact go to the Eagles. um, I
Go
don't know.
ahead, Dalton. Give it to me.
I mean, we're just going to talk about it. They got very much better during this draft. They kind of knocked it out of the park, which is tough. And they didn't have a lot of picks in this draft. They ended up only making 5, I believe. But they did trade the one, or actually they traded 2 of them for AJ Brown, and that's always going to be better than whatever you are drafting.
Yeah.
AJ Brown is better than Treylon Burks. So yes, you got rid of somebody who you were going to have to pay probably close to $30 million a year for, but now you have the cheap guy, and you hope that the cheap guy can be 80% of what AJ Brown was. So the Philadelphia Eagles got better. They got their alpha to complement Devontae Smith, who I think can be a very, very good receiver in the NFL, but he's still a 170-pound receiver. And you have to worry about that a little bit. Same with Quay, man. And Quay Watkins is a very fat, like, they're all incredibly fast, and they can all make big plays. It is scary to have to go up against that. And then you sit and you think, well, still Jalen Hurts throwing them the football. So hopefully they'll be okay. Now to their draft, Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Josh Sweat, and Hassan Reddick now too. It's disgusting. Their defensive front is outstanding. They still don't have great linebackers, but they got one very good one in this draft, one that shouldn't have been anywhere near the 3rd round, but fell because of an unresolved injury. And that's probably, in my opinion, the best linebacker in this draft is Nakobe Dean. So they got Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean, know each other very well, know how to play off of each other as well. Jordan Davis is a force multiplier. He allows you to put more guys in coverage. It is a scary proposition for the Dallas Cowboys because that is a good Philadelphia Eagles football team, just kind of weighed down by a quarterback, maybe.
Right, and part of the whole criticism of Nakobe Dean is, oh yeah, he has guys like Jordan Davis in front of him. What is he going to do when he doesn't? And it's like, oh, that's a moot point now.
Yeah.
We don't care. He has Jordan Davis in front of him.
Yeah.
And who cares that Jordan Davis is only going to play, 35% of the snaps? Because they don't want him to play more than 35% of the snaps, frankly, right? And when it comes down to it, it's the Cowboys saying, hey, we want to run the ball, and the Eagles saying, hey, we'd like to see you try.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. And I mean, they weren't the only team that had a good draft. I thought that the Giants, they did some weird stuff. Well, they did some weird stuff. Wan'Dale Robinson was a weird pick. Azudo was just kind of okay. Like, I thought he was going to go on day 3, but he ended up going in round 3. I didn't watch Cordell Float. He's an LSU corner, so I should know who he is, but I didn't watch him, and I think that kind of talks or speaks to how good he was, or at least how good people thought he might be. But getting Kayvon Thibodeau to pair on that defensive line and that defensive front is fantastic as well in New York. And then to add Evan Neal at right tackle, those are 2 superstars or potential superstars going forward.
Yeah.
You needed to address the offensive line. They did that with Neal, and I think they tried to do it again with Azudo, and we'll see how it goes. But they already got Mark Lewinsky in free agency, and Andrew Thomas has really improved at left tackle. So that's a team that could be improving a little bit. We'll see what they have for Daniel Jones in the future. But they still don't have a quarterback. So as good as they do, and it's a good sign for Giants fans because it shows Dave Gettleman is gone. Like, this thing isn't completely lost anymore. But I think they had a pretty decent draft overall.
Yeah,
and with those tackles,
oh wait,
that
sorry.
offensive line is like 1,700 pounds. So
Yeah.
Mass. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt real quick, but we got a comment from K-Web in the chat saying how many Georgia defense guys were drafted this year. Do you what's the official number? Do we know?
I don't know what the official number is offhand. I believe 6 went in the first round.
That sounds about right.
I don't know about defense. I think Dane tweeted that there were 15 Georgia players overall drafted. Because they also had like Jake Camarda also drafted, which I don't know how often he punted this year, but
Sorry, I'm let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I see 6. I think I see 6 Georgia defensive guys drafted.
just in the first round or total.
Hold on.
Unless I'm like, oh, sorry, that's stupid. I had the wrong year. Here we go. All right, that's a number I'm more used to seeing. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8.
I mean, do we count Darian Kendrick? He didn't play a snap for them, right?
I see 8 defensive guys and like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 offensive guys. So it's like 15.
Wow.
Yeah.
They broke the record according to Dane. So.
Oh, did they? Okay.
I mean, that makes sense. That was the best defense I've ever seen in college football.
Which
Yeah,
is
that's crazy.
silly because they lost their entire defensive backfield last year.
I know. It's
Yeah.
insane. They just somehow got better. It was wild.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But yeah, I want to go back to Wan'Dale Robinson real quick because I had Calvin Austin above Wan'Dale Robinson. Calvin Austin went 100 picks later, and so I mean, yes, I understand that this is them saying, "Hey, Kadarius Toney, here's the door," but what else does this mean? Like, what is this? What is?
It's really weird because Wan'Dale's archetype doesn't go in the second round almost ever. These very miniature sized receivers. So those guys, just, as good as they are, they just don't go that early ever. So it's a little bit weird. But what I will say is Cole Beasley for Buffalo for the past couple of years has been one of the best outlets in the NFL. He's racked up like 90 catch seasons for them, just kind of moving the chains on third downs and being a dump off option. And, maybe they want that. And with somebody like Wan'Dale, you have that ability to become that kind of route runner. And then you also have the ability after the catch to wiggle away from a guy or two. So I think that might have been their thought here. They think, maybe Shepard might be gone. They're probably going to have to trade Kadarius Toney for pennies on the dollar. So I think they just said, we got to go get him.
As a Ravens fan, they're buyers. Like, we'll take him if they're willing to take something real nice for him. But
I thought Ravens were just gonna run 4 tight end sets every play.
That wouldn't be off brand. I mean, that's about as many tight ends as we have on the roster right now. So yeah, that's about right.
And then you have Dane Belton, who was a productive, at least, we watched a lot of Big Ten football, so, productive safety. He was always a problem. And then Micah McFadden had that really good pick against Talia Tagovailoa last year that hurt just a little bit. And rounding it out with a couple guys that I didn't have on my radar, DJ Davidson, Marcus McKeithen, and Darian Beavers, who I heard couldn't run. So
he can't run very well, but he's like an old school. Like he's really fun to watch because he's kind of run downhill and hit you really hard, and he's got the high jersey cut uniform, and he'll tuck in his uniform like so his shoulder pads are popping out. He's kind of old school downhill hitter, and he's decent in coverage for being a not great athlete, but a good 6th round pick, I would say.
Yeah, when I was watching him, I was thinking like Scooby Wright, Tyler Matakevich, like the stereotypical, I mean, he didn't play in the Pac-12, but Pac-12 linebackers that are just like, they racked up 150 tackles, and you don't know how they did it, but they did. Do we want to go to Commanders now, Mark?
Sure, let's do it.
I'm gonna have to get used to saying that.
Yeah, sorry. I'm working a slide deck, Dalton. That's my bad. And so, sorry if that's okay, we're good. Yep.
All right. So what do you got for me on this?
Oh.
Dalton, I think
Dalton, you're muted.
Sorry, I forgot I was pushed to talk. I think the first thing I thought was I was surprised they traded out of their pick. I thought that once they got wiped out of the two Ohio State wide receivers, I thought they were just going to take Kyle Hamilton. They ended up not doing that. They traded out of that pick. Kyle Hamilton goes to Baltimore. And they have to, kind of go with what I believe to be a little bit of a reach in Jahan Dotson.
Yeah.
I love the player, and I love the person. I went to Penn State's pro day. He was one of the most well-spoken athletes I've ever been around, and I've been around some really great ones for public. So I was really impressed with him, and I knew he was going to go a lot higher than a lot of people thought because of that, because teams like those sorts of people to be on campus. They also like the guys like his teammate Quan Brisker, and they might say it very, very poorly to the media that the guy really likes football, but Brisker is the type of guy who, when you eat, sleep, and breathe football, teams are going to like you. If you have interests outside of football, like building your own brand, like Kayvon Thibodeau, they'll talk down about you. And then they'll go out on the football field and kick your ass. So I think that the Dotson pick was a good one for the culture, because we all know Washington's culture is so-so and always has been. And especially now with Carson Wentz on campus, they're going to have to keep things really even in that locker room. And I think Dotson can do that.
Hey, maybe Sam Howell will be the emotional leader that binds the team together.
I love Sam Howell. I was absolutely shocked that he lasted until round 5.
Yeah, same. I totally agree with you.
I think that he could play this year if he had to. Would it be top 20 quarterback play? Probably not, but he would survive. For me, he's already an upgrade on Taylor Heineke. So I think that would be a decent shot to go for if Carson Wentz just completely flames out. But getting to Vidarius Mathis, Washington cannot see an Alabama defensive tackle around the value that he should be taken and not draft them. Doesn't matter how many they have. They now have an entire defensive front in the middle, at least, consisting of Alabama defensive tackles drafted in the top 2 rounds. So fun little interior there. He will take over a role that Matt Ioannidis kind of worked for a long time. So it'll be interesting to see that. Brian Robinson, another Alabama player, one that I thought was actually going to be a Dallas Cowboy. He doesn't really fit the mold that I thought Washington was going to go for. Antonio Gibson, athletic guy, was a wide receiver in college. J.D. McKissick obviously is one of the best receiving backs in the league. So it was a little bit weird to see Robinson, but he complements those two well because he is the downhill runner of the group. So
I was going to ask what you made of that Brian Robinson pick. What do you see his role being in the next couple of years? I mean, you kind of alluded to it just now, but realistically, how many snaps is this guy even getting in the first couple of years?
Yeah, in the first year, it's going to be tough to kind of get snaps. They really like to put a big workload on Antonio Gibson. And then for passing downs, it's J.D. McKissick. But I will say if he can pass protect a little bit in the pro level, he can see the field on some third downs as well. I think that when they want to spell Antonio, I think that they can bring Brian Robinson in for a couple of plays or a series. So I think he can get snaps right away. I don't think that he can get snaps that really warranted a top 3 round pick for a team that has holes. But they thought that he was worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Brian Robinson is kind of a weird evaluation because he's kind of an all-around guy. He's mostly a downhill runner, but he can, be effective in the passing game. But at the same time, we don't think he's worth that many touches. And so it was kind of a weird evaluation for me because him and Keontae Ingram were both kind of these all-around guys that really could step in and have impacts if they needed to. But we don't really consider them top-tier guys. But yeah, I mean, I agree with the Vidarius Mathis. Monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah,
that's all it comes down to. But I do want to talk about Jahan Dotson, right? I thought I did not have Jahan Dotson rated that highly. I know, for example, Dane kept talking about, oh, he torched Nick Cross in the Maryland game, and I know exactly what play he's talking about. And they were running a cover 1, but somehow the safety ended up on the number 2 receiver instead of number 3. Anyway, it was just like that play. There was a linebacker covering Jahan Dotson on that play, which like is 100% Brian Stewart, the defense coordinator from Maryland's fault. Like it is not Nick Cross's fault. But anyway, that's a separate issue. But Jahan Dotson presents this weird thing where he also is the opposite of Brian Robinson in that they already have Jahan Dotson because Curtis Samuel is supposed to be the better version of that, right? So they have yet another speedster, but also they already have the short version in Curtis Samuel. So I was a little bit confused about that. I enjoyed that. Matt Valdivinos also thought it was a bad value there because he got knocked down a little peg. I thought he was a little smug before the draft, but
he's always going to be a little bit smug before the draft. He's a hopeless optimist when it comes to that franchise, and I don't understand how you can continue that type of fandom with that type of misery.
I'm a tempered optimist for the Cowboys, and I get questioned the same way. So
yes.
But I really liked Cole Turner. I don't know if you had thoughts on him. I was watching, I forget who they were playing. Maybe it was like Fresno State, and they were on the goal line, and they ran 3 straight fades to him. It was just like, we are going to throw it to Cole Turner if you are going to give him man coverage, a single coverage outside. And they just lined him up on an island outside and ran the same play out of different formations 3 different times. And that spoke volumes to me for a Nevada offense that was not short of weapons.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's a massive target. He's that West Coast Pac-12 Mountain West type of tight end that is just a big tree, got big hands, long arms, and he just kind of goes up and gets it. It'll be interesting to see how he's implemented at this level, and obviously he's a 6th round pick or a 5th round pick, so it'll be interesting to see how much playing time he gets. But he is that type of tight end that a couple of years down the road you're like, oh, he's catching 50 passes a season. And it wouldn't be all that surprising to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a quarterback at tight end right now, and they managed last season. So
Logan Thomas, he's a legitimate tight end now, but yes, he was once a quarterback.
Yeah.
Being local to the DMV area, we just always remember him from his Virginia Tech days. So
How do you think he fits in with Carson Wentz's strengths? Because
throwing the tight ends. I mean, that's Carson Wentz's strength. So he should be okay with throwing to a big target that doesn't necessarily separate, but can still go up and get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry.
All right. So Dalton, reset the standings at the end of the 2022 season for me in the division.
It was the Cowboys, and then it was the Philadelphia.
Projecting for the end of this coming season.
Oh wow, 2022. Sorry. Dak stays healthy. Cowboys win it.
Okay.
Philadelphia comes in second. Philadelphia wins 10 plus games. Mm-hmm. I think they're right in that 8, 9, 10 range, but I think their high end is 10. The Giants, I think, are going to win 6 games this year, 6 or 7. And then Washington is going to win 5 to 7. I'll say 6 just to be a little bit lower than New York. But I just think that it won't take long. Washington's defense already kind of fell apart this past season. I don't know how much better it's going to get. And Carson Wentz, I think he's a better quarterback than Taylor Heineke is. But I think he's going to fall apart a little bit with Heineke. And now Sam Howell on his back. He kind of fell apart last season towards the end. We know he's a little bit fragile overall. So it will be interesting to see how he's able to handle the criticism of the DMV. And I think it's going to kind of implode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Speaking of Washington quarterbacks, going back to Sam Howell real quick, I don't know, but it seems like people are scared off by this shorter white quarterback archetype now that Baker Mayfield has said it. And I definitely think it was at least an effect in this huge slide from Sam Howell. So, I agree. Like, if it implodes, it's Sam Howell's game, right? And if even with at that rate, we're looking at, okay, we still aren't changing the order of how we think about these quarterbacks, right? And so at the end of the day, I think it was Quan or who like raised the question. It was like, okay, who's guarding who? And I think the better question is who's throwing to those guys, right? And like that's what you and I think agree on, which is at the end of the day, like receiving options come to a certain extent, and this kind of leads to my next question, which is that like as long as you have good quarterbacks, that's the whole point, and that's kind of the reason why Jerry and company for Dallas was okay with letting Amari go for pennies, which is one, they devalued him on purpose for some odd reason that none of us can understand, but two, if Dak is really that good of a quarterback, he shouldn't need elite weapons to be productive, right?
Yep.
And so this leads me to my next question, which is you mentioned that the Eagles got better with AJ Brown and they paid him 100 over 4, which 57 guaranteed really tells me it's 57 over 3, right? So 19-year-ish.
Yeah, it's not a bad contract at all.
But this leads to my question, which is that obviously it's Jacksonville's fault that everyone's dealing with this, but where's the merit to we are seeing an elite run of receivers, and this year was a down year in terms of receiving talent technically over the past recent history, but where do we see this argument? How valid do we see this argument about why would you pay receivers if you can get new ones every year in the draft? Like how, especially with this market reset coming.
Yeah, I think more teams are going to try to do it that way. I think that you're going to start seeing teams just let their stars walk, like we saw in Green Bay and like we saw in Tennessee. And I mean, obviously Amari Cooper to a lesser extent. I don't think that he quite has the name recognition of either of those guys. And Tyreek Hill in Kansas City, another that was traded because they weren't going to pay him. So it'll be interesting to see how it progresses, because I think wide receivers are going to kind of start to become like running backs a little bit. And it's not that they're going to be devalued, because wide receiver is important. And we know that it is an important position, but I do think teams are going to shy away from paying receivers because we have 6, 7, 8, 9 to 15 every year that can come out and, contribute a little bit. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that market kind of goes going forward.
Yeah.
So that implies though that the market's going to reset back to a lower level almost, right? And so how many years do you think that takes, right?
Probably 2 or 3 years if we keep having this kind of run of wide receivers in the draft. And just going back to Dak and the wide receiver conversation, it's really going to be interesting to see how guys like Aaron Rodgers look. Obviously back-to-back MVPs with Devontae Adams. Take Devontae Adams from that equation, and how good does he look now? So I'm very interested, because we always kind of talk about, these quarterbacks can continue to perform. It doesn't really matter who their wide receivers are. I think you're going to see a little down in Aaron Rodgers and a down year a little bit for Patrick Mahomes. So it's going to be interesting to track all that.
Yeah, I guess as maybe a more casual fan looking at it from the outside in, I seem to like I think I agree with what you all are saying, but also part of me wonders if this, devaluing of positions, and in this case wide receivers, in terms of not paying your stars, is really more team specific and position specific than like wide receivers as a whole. Because we talked a lot about wide receivers right now, but for every I guess maybe the Steelers is a decent example of a team that really can develop a wide receiver, and they also know to generally not pay them unless you're Antonio Brown, I guess. But then for every team like that, I guess you have teams like the Ravens, I guess that's just where my head goes, who knows how to develop their defensive line and linebackers, and then we don't generally pay them. Is this discussion that you're having something that you're really thinking about for wide receivers specifically, or this almost strikes me as a more general like team strength in development discussion. Is that fair? Oh, okay.
Yes, absolutely. It's kind of like Seattle with running backs. They draft running backs, nobody else does. And so yes, I do think it's going to be team specific. Somebody like the Arizona Cardinals are going to go out and spend a first round pick this year to go and get Marquise Brown from the Ravens. So there's going to be teams that covet the position. They obviously do in Arizona, but a lot of teams are kind of the other way with it. We're seeing, Miami might covet it a little bit. I think you're probably going to see Minnesota covet it when it comes time to pay Justin Jefferson. So it'll be interesting, and I also think it matters how much your quarterback is making. Justin Herbert, you can pay 2 or even 3 wide receivers to come and play in Los Angeles because Justin Herbert is playing for pennies. When Justin Herbert gets that $50 million contract, that's going to change. One of those wide receivers is going to be gone. So it's all just a balancing act, and I think some teams are better at doing that.
Yeah, and I always blame the low trade value of Amari to the fact that his college quarterback was bad. So, maybe if he had some quarterback advocating for him, we might have gotten some trade value out of him. But alas. Mark, do you want to go with the fan question real quick?
Oh, sure.
Or the chat question.
Yeah, we have another question from K Webb in the chat asking, what can we expect from they say Giants QB play in general over this upcoming season, but I guess we're mostly just talking about Daniel Jones.
I think that with somebody like Brian Daboll, I think the offense is going to be better than it was under Jason Garrett. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. They've also helped the offensive line a little bit. And I think with Daniel Jones, we've seen flashes of him that are like, he might be kind of good. He's an athletic dude who can get out and make plays. It's the turnovers, it's the fumbles in the pocket, the poor pocket management, and things like that. If he can grow and show that he can play behind what's an improving offensive line, but still not a good one, I think that you see the flashes for him to go on and do things at another stop after the Giants. Now, I don't expect the Giants to pay him. I don't expect him to be highly regarded after the season, but I think there are enough flashes, and I think he'll provide enough this season as well to where teams are going to take a second shot at him on a second contract.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, we've held you for a long time, Dalton. You've offered a lot more time than I asked for.
We really do appreciate you being here. Do you want to plug
anything you're working on? Things you want to, your socials and whatnot.
Dalton B. Miller on all of my socials. And nothing to really plug. Just go visit Pro Football Network and click on every single article and scroll for a little bit, stay on the page for a minute, and then you can click out. But give us our clicks and pay my salary, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Well,
once again, folks, one of my favorite people in the entire sports industry. So, absolutely enjoyed having you on, Mark.
I'm just mirroring what you said. It means the world for you to be on here. It means a lot. We really appreciate your time and your really amazing insight on NFC East happenings.
Hey,
and just football in general.
Very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming on.
All right, thanks, appreciate it.